بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah. So over the past sessions we've been reflecting and slowly going deeper into some of the defects, the ailments of speech, in order to weed them out, root them out, and beautify our speech, enable us to communicate in a more prophetic manner, which, as mentioned, has implications to the soul and is indicative of the soul's state. So the tongue is of absolute importance in a person's sayr and suluk, person's wayfaring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as mentioned, Imam al-Ghazali, as he goes through the various defects of the tongue, of speech, of communication, they get deeper and somewhat grimier and heavier. He starts off with those things which are, to focus on what's important. Leave out that which has no meaning to you, is of no concern. Don't be a busybody in the way that you speak and what you're speaking about. But as mentioned also, those things it's preferable to leave, and for the very reason that they can lead towards that which is more severe. But now he's going to those things, and in some contexts can be strictly haram. So may Allah preserve us all, and preserve all of our loved ones from any of these ailments. And if we have any of these things, that we ask Allah that through the barakah of this blessed month, and through the sir and the secrets and the mysteries which are placed within the refraining of eating and drinking and other things in this blessed month, that Allah allows us to abstain from that, all that is displeasing to Him. If a person comes out of this month and they're able to have refined their capacity to speak, then they'll be able to receive a communication from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which they've perhaps never been able to hear before. It's mentioned frequently also about the importance of understanding that communication is not one way. Imam al-Ghazali is not just teaching us how to be engaging in a monologue, he's teaching us how to be able to listen, not only more effectively but deeper, and using different capacities and different faculties within you to unlock and to be unlocked to reach something of your human potential. Wabillahi tawfiq. Al-afat al-rabi'a, so the fourth ailment. So far, so what have we had? That which al-kalam fi ma la ya'nik, speaking in that which has no purpose, no concern to you, doesn't involve you, there's no reward in it, there's no benefit in it. And then we had, what was the second one? Excessive speech. Fudul al-kalam. So they say a person that has too much fudul al-kalam, they become fuduli, you become a meaningless person, just excessive. There's no balance. If all you're talking about is everything, is a saturation of speech. You can't fix up. When are you actually speaking what's real and when are you not? And when the Prophet ﷺ was very purposeful when he spoke ﷺ. And for that reason, the majority of the time he was absolutely quiet, very quiet human being ﷺ. As mentioned, this is also the way of the Salaf, very, very quiet people. And then the third, al-khawd fil batil, delving into that which is false and fake and not real. And that's when it's verging and can very, very easily verge towards that which is haram and has an effect, upon the heart and upon the soul. So now we're going to number 4, al-mira' wal-jidal, disputation and argumentation, arguing. He starts off by quoting a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's narrated in Imam al-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah. من ترك المراء وهو محق بني له بيت في أعلى الجنة ومن ترك المراء وهو مبطل بني له بيت في ربض الجنة. The one that chooses to leave disputation, literally to abstain from disputation, you could say argumentation, وهو محق, and they have a right to their claim. Their premise is actually a real, genuine premise. That an abode is built for him in the highest planes of Jannah, the highest degrees of Jannah. And the one that abstains from disputation and they have no premise, there's no foundation to that argument, they're still rewarded. An abode is built for them in the lower dwellings of Jannah. And the lower dwellings of Jannah, it's not the slums, no slums in Jannah, it's not the rough parts that nobody wants to live in. You know, this is Jannah. Every part of it is blessed, is beautiful, is beyond the dunya. And everything that's in it. So if any time we need some kind of motivation, just think about where you want to be spending your time for eternity. Just something as seemingly simple, just moving away, abstaining from disputation. This could be a means to secure your dwellings where you're going to be living for all eternity. It's also narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Imam Ahmad. ما ضل قوم بعد أن هداهم الله تعالى إلا أوتوا الجدل. No peoples were ever misguided or fell into misguidance after Allah guided them, meaning they were recipients of guidance. People that were guided, they never slipped out of this state of guidance by Allah, إِلَّا وَأُوتُوا الْجَدَلِ, except but through argumentation, through disputation. So, one of the signs of a person's guidance, their hidayah, slipping away, is they become argumentative. It's one of the great entry points for the shaitan to enter into people that are perhaps starting to take their deen a bit more seriously, start to approach their deen a bit more seriously. If the shaitan can't get you in the pub, he's going to get you in different ways. He's always ready. So people become argumentative, they start to bicker about things. And not only is that a means for that guidance to slip away, because the guidance can't be cradled in that kind of defect present in the soul, in the nafs. But also, it's a sign that Allah has turned away from these people, left them to their own devices. Keep on arguing. You see where that gets you. So, a spiritual aspirant upon the path should be really keen to, if they start to become just argumentative, the situation at that point is irrelevant. The fact that you're in a state now which is argumentative, you need to move away from it. Sometimes people get caught up in the situation. No, but I'm in the right, and that's not the point. This is a state which Allah does not like within you. And it's a means for great spiritual gifts to be taken away. One of the most difficult parts of that process is the person that's had those gifts taken away doesn't even feel it. You're not even aware. May Allah protect us. He narrates also something from Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhum, talking about the importance of not learning knowledge for this sake. Sometimes the more knowledgeable a person gets, it's an opportunity to boast. لِتُبَاهِي بِهِ. or to argue or to show off. That's not why that's not a valid reason to seek sacred knowledge. He says, and don't leave knowledge out of shyness from seeking it. So if you ever think, I have a question, but I'm shy to ask the question, what will other people think of me? Take the advice of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Ask. Don't do it out of shyness. The Prophet ﷺ praised the women of the Ansar. He said that shyness does not prevent them from learning their deen. And this comes from a deen which it's kind of foundational characteristic quality is haya, is shyness and modesty. But everything in its place, everything in its balance. وَلَا زَهَادَةٍ فِيهِ. And also not being abstinent from it. Like, I've had enough knowledge for now. I know enough. وَلَا رِضَانْ بِالْجَهْلِ مِنْهُ. And not to be blissfully ignorant. Yeah. Don't be content that you're ignorant. Always seek more. Yeah. So one of the signs of disputation, it's kind of related to also being nitpicky. You know that word? It's just like, no, but you said that in the wrong way, or that's not the, that's not the right way to say it, or that's not, just being nitpicky. It's just being confrontational. And it's a sign ultimately as a movement away from ikhlas. A person is mukhlis, that is truly seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have their sights on the goal, and their hearts are freed from anything other than Allah. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they teaching what they're teaching? Why are they learning what they're learning? Why are they engaged in the path which they're engaged with? But if that starts to dwindle and deplete, you start to become more aware and annoyed by other people's mistakes. وَلِيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. If you're lost in al-ma'na or qasd. So say for example, that's not how you pronounce it. Is the point right? Yeah. Is it that big a deal? No. Okay, let's move on. Al-ma'na, the meaning of what they're saying. They didn't quite understand that. I know the real reason. Al-qasd, or their aim. So leaving this kind of disputation is related to an active abstaining from just not nitpicking people's business. If someone says something, let it fly, as they say. Just turn away from it. If another person's argumentative, not to engage in that. And then he gives some advice. فَكُلُّ مَا سَمِعْتَهُ فَإِنْ كَانَ حَقًّا فَصَدِّقْ. Anything that you hear from someone, if it's true, then just believe it. It's fine. You don't have to give your 2 pence. 2 cents, what they say? 2 pence, 2 cents. وَإِنْ كَانَ بَاطِلًا أو كذبا لا يتعلق بأمور الدين فاسكت عنه. And if it's just batil, it's just nonsense, someone's just talking, going on with themselves, or some form of lie that is not connected to the affairs, to religious affairs, doesn't have something which is related or rooted in the deen, you just be quiet about it. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. So mujadala is this kind of active argumentation. That's something slightly different. Disputation is just almost closer to nitpicking. But mujadala is when you're just argumentative, confrontational. When you have this active ba'ith, this active, qasd, this aim towards, shutting someone down and keeping them quiet. And what can come from this is things kind of accusing someone of something foul, or pointing out some kind of discrepancy within their character or something that they do. Who are you to tell that to me? I know what you do. I know who you really are. You do this, you do that. It has nothing to do with the actual what's being exchanged. This is a sign of argumentation. It's not the way of the prophets, not the way of the people of Allah. وَالْبَاعِث, and the instigating trigger. You could say maybe a trigger is a good way to put this. Typically they use this in psychology. So the trigger, which is really, it's like an impetus that fuels. Because people can be saying different things. The way it manifests on the tongue is one thing. But if you look down to, what's the trigger? What's the impulse now that's causing, and if you sever that, then it's going to be good. الترفع بإظهار العلم. It's literally seeing one's like a holier than thou attitude. They say, seeing oneself as higher, from the. And they say, like in English, get down off your soapbox. Like saying, let me inform you, you people down below me. بإظهار العلم, just manifesting your wonderful knowledge. والفضل, and your merit. What a great person you are. And also just having this really foul and pernicious quality of just liking to attack people. Some people they're just always on guard. And if there's anything that's indicative of a soul which is in a state of distress, it's that. The people of Allah don't suffer from those things. What do you mean? Why did you say that? What are you talking to? That's not a sign of a tranquil soul. Allah protect us. And he says these are two very powerful passions of the ego. It's a form of shahwa which comes from the ego. Showing how great you are and putting everyone else down. And it can be very subtle. So for example, if somebody's very quick with their tongue, quick-minded, they're very yuskit al-akhir, they're able to just shut someone down very quickly. Through sarcasm or... But it's the intention to say, it's a subtle way where you to have a sign on the heart, say, this is how great I am, this is how ungreat you are. وَلِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. قبل تزكية النفس. This happens and is indicative of a person who has not gone through a process of spiritual purification, have engaged in tazkiyah. If somebody does this, this is a sign that the person is not engaged in tazkiyah. They've not been trained. There's no tarbiyah that's taken place in that person. And it's the result of that which was in the human being, this kind of tyrannical claim to divinity or highness. أَنَا رَبُّكُمْ الْأَعْلَى. I am the greatest Lord. That's the words of the Pharaoh. So you've got to keep the Pharaoh in you quiet. Imam Ghazali has this beautiful theme of imagery which runs through the Ihya. It's part of the Taba' al-Sabi'iyya, the kind of predatorial component to the ego, like a predatory animal, like something that's going to attack, and always the nafs has this quality. And it comes from this, and you mazziq ghayrahu, literally just to kind of tear someone else into shreds. That's what like a lion does. This is just like a predatory wild animal. The nafs has this kind of temperament if it's not been tempered. And he says, and these are two traits, argumentation and disputation, which lead a person to hell. Muhlikatan. It's a means, if a person doesn't rid this, it's a means to enter a person into the hellfire. And he says, وَالْمُوَاظِبُ عَلَيْهِمَا. A person that perpetuates, it doesn't tend to these problems, doesn't weed out these traits in their character, just goes through a whole life and they're always disputing, they're always argumentative, they're always looking to kind of, shut someone off or put them down. All this does is goes to strengthen this quality. The lion gets bigger within the nafs. And it takes real courage and real dedication to tend to these things before it becomes almost, it overtakes a person. And now for the cure, alhamdulillah, mashallah. It's like being in the ring with Imam al-Ghazali, and once you're down on the floor, he says, he gives you the hand. I just had to do that to you, just to know where you're really at. Now let me help you back up. وَعِلَاجُ. Now for the cure. فِي أَنْ يَكْسِرَ الْكِبْرِ. Break your arrogance. That's what he says. Sounds like more of a diss than a cure. Yeah, but that's Imam Ghazali once again keeping it real. This haughtiness within. Who do you think you are? The audacity. You're a human being. You're created. You can create anything. To look down upon other people, to think that they don't have special gifts that may be hidden within them. And this predatory trait within the nafs as well needs to be broken. And there are different ways to do this. And Imam Ghazali, he says we can reference this in a later chapter, which is another book in the same court of the Ihya, which deals with arrogance and conceit. Now, a tendency within modern culture is that we move away from traditional structures of family and community and ultimately society. So when we're in close proximity with other people, we become a lot less refined as maybe previous people were in dealing with other people's. Someone might maybe pronounce something incorrectly. Previous people, they probably would just get over that. They wouldn't even recognize it. But we become very, pedantic about small things, because part of it's like an affront on my personal space. When these triggers are not dealt with, it just builds up this place within the human being. And also because of the likes of social media and our consumption, the mass consumption of social media, the nature of the medium is you can get what you want whenever you want it. There's no striving, there's no struggle. The only hint of a struggle is like, what's wrong with the connection in this place? Why is it not working? And then the nest starts to, almost like it's only an internet connection, it's calmed out. But sometimes the addiction to those kind of things as a primary source and training and conditioning of one's ability and one's capacity to communicate, all of these things have a huge corrosive effect on our ability to be with other human beings when we're actually in person. Because human beings are not robots, they're not digitized, they're not machines. There are many ways to communicate, and we need to be cautious of these things within our hearts. You find it as well with young children. If they spend too long on screens, they just become very short-tempered, very argumentative. It's the nature of the technology, once again, not a neutral technology. So that's why a general recommendation, even for people that are, it may be a source of livelihood. People may be involved in IT in whatever kind of capacity or use computers. Let's face it, most people do at some capacity now. But just to have some time for active detox. And just as a general thing, for even those of us that aren't involved in those things, with phones, to have some time where you just put the phone away. or you literally turn it off. I can't turn it off. At least just put it on silent. Just put it on. But no, it's not gonna. If you want this to work, you have to do it properly. It has to just be. I just put it on silent. You can see the slippery slope that Imam al-Ghazali has mapped out for how things. Because what happens? Let me just see what's. And it's like a reflex reaction. People don't even think now. It's very interesting to observe. Sometimes when a conversation slightly depletes people, it's like now's the time to get out the phone. Why? What was the impetus? Why? Was there something? Do you even hear a buzz? There's nothing going on. It's just, that dopamine's going down a bit. Let me just get another, check if I've got any more likes, or check in if I've got any more. Let me just have another look. Let's just see what's going on in the world. I like to keep updated. Let me see what's going on in the news. And the sad thing is people have neglected their own lives, their own spiritual lives, their own family lives. Through the claim of the shaitan to, you should be more informed about the world. You could really help things. Meanwhile, the soul's been neglected, subhanAllah. So that's how it works, like a slippery slope. You start off like that. Just have a look. Well, it's only an hour that's gone by, only 2 hours, only 3 hours. Seriously, hour after hour. What is this technology doing to us? We don't even know. I mean, there are early statistics and early kind of analyses into what's going on, particularly in young children, how it literally affects the brain waves. But the point is, it's so new. People talk about millennials. Even millennials are old-fashioned now. They're like, what's it called? Like Generation Z, generation. People that have, whatever it's called, people that have only grown up knowing smartphones. That's there's a generation, where they knew a world without mobile phones and then came into it. And they're always a bit clunky on using it. They use it like a typewriter, which is actually, people mock people, like, you don't know it's actually a safety. It's a real blessing not to be that good, savvy on social media. Because it's like you're getting deeper into the sticky net. Now, okay, so we're just going through a few things, seeing what's going on in the world, just a bit of entertainment, what's going on. Kalam fi ma la ya'nik, that which does not really have any meaning to you. And then it's excessive, even the stuff that may be of interest to you, even deen. People are like, Kayf, how can you say things about deen? Okay, because of the nature of the medium, we're only going to choose the things that we want. I want to listen to this. I want to hear about. Okay, what about the things you need to be hearing? I want to hear about. I want to hear about the nice bits, the spiritual bits, the things that Okay, what about your wudu? Huh? Decades being Muslim and still don't know quite how to make wudu. But we know all of that. I can refute that hadith. I know the takhrij. I know that's Bukhari. That's not Tirmidhi. Ajib. This is what it's doing to us. And what we're doing is we think that's the way people learn religion. That's how people used to always learn religion. Yeah. YouTube isn't going to give you any tarbiyah. It's not going to tell you, look, I know you think what you think is doing is a good thing now, looking at this religious thing, or at best, I'm talking about, this is like the Salihin on YouTube. Let's face it. Alhamdulillah, I almost don't want to make too much of a thing about it. But still, okay, but the prayer time's in. Or what else? There's that dhikr you could be doing. You could be engaging with the Quran. We're leaving that which has a clear, scripturally testified, reward in. You will be rewarded for this in ways which you can't even imagine. Yeah, but I'd rather just do this for a bit. That's how strong of an impact it can have on our psyche. Only the people of real bravery and courage. It takes real courage, real strength. It's not easy to do. Because it does have a physiological impact. Now, okay, so that which has no meaning to you. Being excessive. Argumentation. Is there anyone that ever argues on the internet? You have entire forums. You have, just look at the comment sections. You know, what he said was correct, but actually this is the way it should be. And I mean, like, who are you? Some irrelevancy with a silly picture, with incorrect grammar, correcting some, you know, person that's maybe spent 20 years of their life in an active pursuit of sacred knowledge. You know. They also talk about how the way the internet doesn't have any, there's no accountability. No one's gonna say that. And even if they do, you can just, you can reply back. I don't care what you say about me. It's just all these things which are building up our nafs. To the point that even those people which are invested and entrusted, you know, they've been entrusted with these great gifts of tarbiyah. Or why does he say that to me? Or why does he, what does he mean by that? Or what does she mean by that? Or what's... So a person's experience, were they to come into a place of traditional learning with people that have the sirr of tarbiyah, there's like a wall. Because you're still in the YouTube, like, internet mindset. Because that's what you've conditioned yourself upon. It's a really strange thing. Like, why are you, like, putting it up there? I mean, it's not eternal. But why would you put something up on a public forum that literally exposes yourself? You're embarrassing yourself. You know, why would somebody do that? Let me comment on this. And have you not thought there are, like, other people? You not even have, if you have no shame before Allah, you don't have any shame before people. Ajib. Subhanallah. No understanding of the implications of what you're doing. One word could be uttered, could be a means to send a person to the highest realms of paradise. One word could be uttered. You know. The Prophet ﷺ said that towards the end of time, that somebody will utter one word and it will reach the farthest corners of the globe. And these words have an effect. Words are the most important thing. Revelation is in words. You have to understand the profundity of words and what a gift they are. You know. It's funny, like, you have these things like comment. Why? Why do we need your comment? Why have you benefited? It's such a strange thing. You know. It's the same kind of mentality. You know, you get people and they'll be speaking and then say, are there any questions? And you're like, it's not a question. It's another lecture. You know. So, you know. You have to understand, like, even if what you have to say is important, there's a time, there's a place. Really, previous peoples, they would know this. They would know there's a time, there's a place, and even if it's important, this is just out of respect for the, you know. They say, like, I beg to differ. Here we go. And this can happen in many forms, in many disguises. So a person that's on a spiritual path, if they frequent certain circles, it could be something very subtle. You've got to be careful, monitor yourself. Actually, yeah, I remember, didn't you say, you know, such and such a thing before? Wasn't it on page 123? And why? Why are you showing your knowledge? Why are you showing these things? Why are you showing that you know better? And this is with deen. You know, deen isn't guesswork. Deen is reality, as understood through the light of sanad. And what can happen? If a person accustoms themselves, if you're going to say about the most profound thing, the lifestyle which you have adhered to and submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through, then expect anything else. There's so much marital dispute comes through just, you know, people that haven't worked on themselves in this regard. People divorce people because they're just arguing all the time. Yeah, but you're the one. Yeah, but the Prophet ﷺ said, if you leave argumentation and dispute, even if you're in the right, Allah will create for you this incredible abode in the highest realms of Jannah. You'll be there. You don't want that kind of thing. Allah alam. We haven't understood the. I'll give us tawfiq. Because these things, as we said, the tongue is the translator, it's the final point. So if a person is becoming argumentative, disputing about everything, then what kind of state of heart is that person going to be at? Imam Ghazali says, most stuff just keep quiet about, don't worry about it. Even with children, sometimes children can come up with some crazy stuff. Just let them, khair, inshallah. See this? Just let them, whatever, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we have this strange pathology as modern people. Everything needs to be corrected. It's not quite in place. That's not the way I want it to be. I don't know. And there are levels to that, because a person could be like, I'm so desperate to put that person right now. But it's still in the heart, like, I know better. You need to deal with that now. Okay, alhamdulillah, you didn't say anything. You didn't embarrass yourself. But what's going on in the heart? Maybe you don't know better. Maybe there's something else that you don't know about the broad context of the situation. Or maybe it just doesn't matter. It's just think about like, let me correct this. Like that's a form of fudul, it's just meaninglessness. Who cares? If you're going to do it, if you're going to, the convention of scholastic dispute had strict adab. And the scholars would discuss. Imam Malik, he said, لَيْسَ الْجِدَالُ مِنَ الدِّينِ فِي شَيْءٍ. Argumentation, it has no place in the deen. There is no such thing. If somebody, I'm going to argue for the sake, for this other person. He said, that's not the deen then. You're on some other thing. Some of them would even consider talking about groups which were astray as a sign of, as an expression of kalam fi ma la ya'nik. Speech and that which has no meaning to you. So you have these people, they're always doing this wrong, this group is always doing... You're voicing a defect now. That's not the way of the people of Allah. To constantly, even if someone's in the wrong, there's something to be said within the realms of scholarship, no doubt. And Imam al-Ghazali was a great proponent of this. As we know, he wrote incredible texts. But the adab in which he did it, it was his role, it was a responsibility. It's not like everyone now feels, I need to be empowered. And what's happened is we've become completely disempowered. Because we're busy about those things which have no meaning to us, and we've neglected those things that are right before our eyes that are so important. So may Allah give us tawfiq, assist ourselves against ourselves for the sake of ourselves. Fi khairin wa lutfin wa afiyah. May Allah allow us not to be argumentative people. If we found those kind of things, we just feel, some people are just in a grumpy mood sometimes. I'm just going to argue. Why? No reason. I'm going to argue. If you are in that place, like I was saying as well, it normally happens when people are fasting. You're having a rough day, or like at the beginning of the fast, and they become very earnest about everything. That's not appropriate, You were fine the day before when you weren't fasting. Why is it all of a sudden people become very earnest about things, very serious about things? That's something very beautiful to observe about the people of Allah. When they're fasting, they don't become grumpy. They become like bubbly and happier. It's really amazing to witness. Because it's not the nafs which is fueling them, it's the ruh, it's the soul. how much beauty would be unlocked to us were we to actively take on, and work within ourselves. Watch throughout the remainder of the day. Tomorrow, if you feel something, that bothers me. Okay, it should bother you that bothers you. Tend to it before it. And normally because you gotta ration your glucose. Don't waste the energy whilst you're fasting. And so the barakah of attending to these things within the months of Ramadan, inshallah, may Allah rid us of all of these things for the remainder of our lives. Be much more pleasant people to be around, much more effective in our relationships, in our connections, in our friendships, in our communities. Following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, which is what it's all about. The one that came to teach us how to communicate and how to correspond and how to connect and how to relate. Because the person that allows themselves to do this, they're going to have a much deeper relationship with Allah. Because it's part of severing off those things that don't matter within the linear realm, within the realm of creation. Keep your eye on the goal. Don't worry too much about those things. You're not going to set everything straight. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.